Non-binary gender is an immutable trait and a protected class, according to YouTube headquarters. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I just learned some interesting information about what YouTube considers hate speech, which I had honestly not known precisely up until just now. Honestly, I'm not sure if these rules have increased as time has gone on, and I suspect that they have, but here's what happened. I released a video on May 3rd titled, "Non-binary women are so 2015, which was flagged and removed as hate speech within less than 12 hours, and some people told me more like 4 or 5. You can go watch the video hosted on BitChute, and I suggest that you really do if you have a YouTube channel and want to get a hint of the types of things that you aren't allowed to say. Spoilers, reasonable people won't be offended. I didn't say people should do anything particularly mean to non-binary identified, completely female-presenting people like the one I was talking about in the video, besides basically telling them that you don't want to be their friends because they are annoying on account of the fact that they are constantly ordering people around and using being misgendered as leverage to attack people who are talking to them. Never once did I say that non-binary people aren't real or something, as that was simply something that I wasn't interested in discussing in the video, as I have actually made videos on that subject in the past where I had been very nuanced about my analysis. Rather, in the video in question, I merely showed a picture of a specific person, said that this person's personal label of non-binary was something that I believe was phony as she was anatomically and fashionably feminine, and I basically went on to say that I really dislike people like that, especially on account of the fact that she was extremely rude in an internet interaction that I had recently observed her having with somebody else. Thus, saying that got me flagged as hate speech, and I then went on to try to appeal this decision, as I couldn't fathom why it was hate speech, at least in explicit detail, but my appeal was denied. This was not a huge surprise to me, but I was still wondering what exactly it was that bothered them so much. Was it the fact that I showed a photo of the person in question? Was it the fact that I spelled out loud a swear word that I didn't actually say? Was it that I mentioned that a mentality and trend of social behavior should end and these people should be told to stop in blunt terms that might sound hyperbolic? Or was it simply that questioning the concept of non-binary is off limits? Well, I ended up chatting privately with a person that is in close communication with YouTube, who I believe is actually employed by them, who was perfectly respectful and clear. And while I can't exclude any of the aforementioned possibilities of what made this video classified as hate speech, the person assured me that it definitely did break the rules and that my invalidation of non-binary gender identities was certainly a big issue. They explained to me, in no uncertain terms, that the prime violation I had committed was breaking the guidelines around sexual orientation and gender identity, which implies that non-binary gender-identified people that presumably are not intersex and look extraordinarily stereotypically gendered are, in fact, classified explicitly in the same categorization as transgender and or transsexual people. Really? If that doesn't sink in, I'll rephrase myself. If I decide to say, I'm not male just because my name is Prince, I am non-binary and have no gender, and you make a video questioning that, if YouTube were to remain consistent with its rules, your video would be classified as hate speech, removed, and your channel would be given a strike. This opens up a huge can of worms for me intellectually, because while I always figured this was coming eventually, I didn't realize that this level of censorship was actually right here in the current year, barking at our doorstep. First things first, if somebody means to tell us that somebody that looks like this, but demands gender-neutral pronouns, is classified technically as being in the same category as somebody that is a full-blown transsexual, then we have a serious problem, as it basically invalidates the concept of transgenderism entirely and nullifies it, which is bigoted towards trans people. Long story short, if it's gender discrimination to invalidate cisgender people who say that they are trans by merely calling themselves non-binary, trans people are no longer protected because everybody can be trans immediately at their convenience. But a number of people have made such arguments, and it's not an argument that I am committed to making at this time. More so, Jordan Peterson was complaining about this very future back when he first came out against Bill C-16 in Canada, but people said he was wrong, that he was crazy, that he was alt-right, and that he clearly was misinterpreting the bill because he's not even a lawyer, and that the law totally wouldn't ever be used to silence anybody besides the most egregious offenders of misgendering harassment, or whatever. But of course, nobody ever actually said why what he was saying was untrue, just that it was untrue, because reasons. And the bill passed in spite of the fact that at least one trans activist named Theron Meyer was vehemently opposed to it and spoke out against it in front of Canadian Parliament alongside Peterson, even though she eventually changed her mind after it passed for reasons I've yet to hear her articulate. What's done is done, I suppose. I guess it's the law of the land in Canada, but hey, it's not so bad. It's only a crime to misgender trans people and non-binary people and gender fluid people and maybe otherkin in educational settings and in working environments. You can say whatever you want to people on the sidewalk that you don't know or behind closed doors. But remember, these rules do certainly apply to YouTube, and YouTube is a place that I make money. So when I get a channel strike for hate speech, and by the way, this is my 4th, so it's amazing I still have a channel. When this happens, I potentially lose some of my income. Some people would end up homeless if they got a channel strike and couldn't receive super chats. Homelessness, all for saying that this person is female. Interesting how things work out, eh? Teachers are allowed to tell their students all day, every day, that we live in a rape culture where 1 in 4 women will be raped on university campuses, and it's not actually true at all, and they get to say that all men are rapey monsters, blah, 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 and I can't tell my YouTube subscribers what I see when I look at a photo in terms of somebody's gender, which is obvious. Regardless, why do they keep doing this to me? I mentioned Jordan B Peterson, but I could also mention people like Lauren Southern, Blair White, or any other long list of people with huge channels that regularly come right out and say things like, there are only 2 genders, which, by the way, is a statement that I have literally never made once myself on my channel. I've never said that because that's not my argument. I've never said that there's no possibility that I will ever see somebody as somewhere in the middle between male and female, because honestly, I've known people like that and I have no problem with them and seeing them as something neither male nor female, which is something else I've talked about in numerous videos. Regardless, that's not what I was even talking about in the video. I was talking about somebody that made no attempt to present with any androgynous fashion choices, presented completely feminine, and yet claimed gender neutrality anyway, picking fights with people who didn't know to refer to this person with gender-neutral pronouns. Thus, when I got in trouble on YouTube for saying basically that this person is annoying, I got in trouble for the mere act of questioning whether or not this person should be allowed to exhibit such obviously antisocial behavior without being socially reprimanded. Basically, it's like I was told what I was supposed to see and actively penalized for not seeing it.
Tell me how many lights you see.
Regardless, this thing has happened twice now, where my statements aren't at all radical compared to things said by other, larger YouTubers, but again, I have to wonder why I keep getting flagged. Am I such an icky, gross, mean, gay guy? Am I even meaner than Milo Yiannopoulos? Hardly. What is really going on here? I want you to ask yourselves. Am I getting flagged because I say offensive things that hurt people's feelings regarding character traits that they can't change? Do you think that? Have you ever heard me denigrate people for things they can't change? Or even really for people being overweight? One time I got flagged in a way that was similarly not overturned for criticizing male feminists and speaking about some news stories about ones that have done bad things in the past. Is male feminist an immutable trait and a protected class, according to YouTube? Is non-binary identified people that are visually and biologically gendered on one end of the social gender spectrum also immune to having their gender questioned and thus a protected class, according to the rules? I don't know. But YouTube, I guess you want me to see 5 lights, huh? Well, guess what?